Hey there, I'm Retro Master Beater. Last time we played through Legacy of the Ancients, which is an all-time favorite Commodore 64 game of mine growing up. And now I'm going to play through Legend of Blacksilver, which is a spiritual sequel, really. Same game engine, a different planet, but many of the same elements, including your overworld, your towns, castles and citadels, and plenty of dungeons. This game came out in 1988. Now, the Commodore 64 was probably starting to fade a little bit as the competition from the NES and the IBM PC were both coming up strong. So let's see how this game holds up in that time frame. First of all, there's one other version. It's the Apple II version, and I was actually pretty impressed with the quality of the graphics on the Apple II port. Seems they really pushed that system. It looks way better still on the newer Commodore 64, and of course I prefer the sound effects on the C64. It has that special charm. What a musical chip. But this seems very playable on the Apple II if you really prefer that platform. First, I read through the manual. I wanted to understand the backstory, and it struck me right off the top that the story is a bit goofier than Legacy of the Ancients. "We need a hero," whispered the beautiful princess, and then, "Sleep quietly while I tell the story." Oh, that's pretty rich right there. "I could have chosen anyone, but I choose you."
Pokemon, I choose you!
The manual is filled with other nonsense and silly talk like this. "Pay heed to my tales, for the future doth itself repeat." And oh my goodness, Minon, like the bad guy, he kept a diary. Of course he did. All evil power mongers write things like, "the fools," in their diary. And then the last note in the manual is signed, "Cerebral Wizard." That's like saying, "David, human." Yes, we know you're a wizard. Oh my goodness. Anyway, game time. Here we go. The timeline's actually less than 200-year time span, but in the game, they start talking about ancient texts and so on. It's like, dude, it's not ancient history. 200 years is not a long time. "I choose you." Oh, and she hands you a feather. Forrest Gump. Thanks, Jenny. All right. Well, Blackjack is back in the towns, but they have a new dragon wheel, which is just like a slot machine, so there's no skill there. I don't like that. I wish they'd brought back flip-flop from the first game. The high-low game is a little better, since you can get lucky enough a few times to make up for your losses, it seems, but yeah, I don't know. No surefire way of gambling in this one, it seems. Now you get to pay off the jailer for you to go over and get hints from the prisoner. That's kind of fun. But the first time I just walked through one to talk to a prisoner and I got a major beatdown from the guards. Okay, so visiting the temples. Now we have temples you discover. Anyway, each one also has a place you give tribute, and that's how you restore your hit points in this game, but it costs tons of money. Well, it costs some money. They also have a few arcade game sequences, again, to raise your attributes. Then we find out the Owl Temple has archives, which are kind of like the Tarmalon Museum of the last game. You walk the archives, and now to view exhibits, you need specific gems, not coins. Gems. I like coins better. Anyway, which you can find in special places around the Bantros lands. For example, the first coin is a blue gem, and it's in the King's Castle. Just go around opening up chests. First plot point, the good wizard Cerebral is trapped by a landslide inside the castle. You have to rescue him, but how? Well, after getting the blue gem, we come upon an exhibit in the archives called Singing Crystal, and it describes how vibrations can cut away rock. So there you go. The exhibit gives you a small crystal, and you're off to rescue Cerebral. By the way, at the beginning here, when you're in the towns, none of the boat sellers are selling anything in the early stages. So that's frustrating. I would have loved a boat to shortcut some of the long distances you begin walking around the country. But it's a plot point. We need to get to the place where some place sells a boat because it's dependent on how far you can get in the game. Anyway, so first business to use the Singing Crystal to free the wizard Cerebral, which you do, and now he grants you to apprentice status instead of serf. I like it. Good advancement. It now gives you a gold key and tells you to go to the Island Caverns, which you also access via the Owl Archives. Why do you want to go there? Well, In addition to going to the island caverns, he also gives you a quest to find his orb, which has mysteriously disappeared as well. Alright, so it looks like my next venture is making my way to the bottom of the first dungeon. Luckily, I've been there before, and they don't hit that hard yet. It's a pretty easy dungeon. I'm feeling like they didn't really polish this up like Legacy of the Ancients. For example, you go to the Owl Temple and have to load that up with one disc. Then you walk to the Mystic Man, and he'll open up the archives. You enter the archives, and you have to load those up. Then when you find the Island Cavern exhibit, you load up the exhibit to go to the island. Put in disc 3, that's the overworld, and it loads. Then you arrive on the island, one step over to the right, and you enter the dungeon, which now you have to insert disc 4 to load. And finally you're in the dungeon. So much loading just to get to the dungeon you want. It's just not, I don't know, not well thought out, I think. Great, so at the bottom of the dungeon you get a silver goblet with an owl symbol. I wonder where that's going to go. Bring it to the dude in the Owl Temple. He's so happy his life work is done, even though he just sat around waiting for it. Some hard, weird work that was. All right, but he gives you 5 strength somehow. And now you have a bracelet that lets you approach the empaths, and you can buy life elixirs, which is this game's version of healing herbs. You also get your first red garnet, which is a gem for exhibits. And now we're going to use that on storming gear to get the equipment we need to storm Mantrex Citadel, and that'll be our next quest. So, stock up on elixirs that'll easily restore enough hit points for the Citadel, and storm the Citadel. And storm it I did. I came in there, steel flashing, flaming magic spells of death, took out all the guards one by one because those guys were just so evil for guarding. And I found a magic statuette. Bought the orb at great expense to my own personal strength, I'll have you know. And also got my first amethyst gem. Sweet! Probably going to use that for something in the exhibit, maybe the mountaineering equipment, not sure yet. There's an active torture area in the Citadel, and it's funny that every person says the same thing. I'll never escape these chains, but I can tell you this. Come on, guys. I mean, really, not enough room on 4 floppy disks to have them at least each say something different about their fate? And we can't free these poor guys? We question them and just leave them hanging. God, what kind of sick hero has the princess chosen here? Alright, I'm back out of the Citadel. Now I have a few tasks to do. I got to go back to the Owl Archives to sample the Ethereum. I got to browse towns and shops for another amethyst coin so I can get the mountaineering equipment. And I got to visit Eagle's Temple to return their artifact and also get some bonus. So once you finally get registered, you can play the Tryst game, which is the way that you can boost your intelligence in this game. It's kind of fun, not nearly as good as Stones of Wisdom. I loved Liar's Dice way more. You know, I got to 25 intelligence, and then I was just bored enough to move on from Tryst, so that's all good. Alright, went to the Ethereum exhibit and drank that. Now you can talk to the magicians in the temples and cash in your silver coins to increase skills on spells. Get it? So silver coins are scattered throughout dungeons and stuff, and you turn them into train to improve your skill sets. I'm guessing you can now buy the more advanced spells too, since my mind has been open to it. Ooh. So I'm going out there to search for that next dungeon level now that I have the climbing gear, and guess what? Some shopkeeper says, "Hey bub, Citadel wants to see you." Well, thanks for the hint. I could have been running all around the countryside, but I'm going to go back to the castle, raise my level. I gave the orb back to Citadel, and he's all happy, but he gives me some kind of laggard vapors. Sounds like they'll be useful, but doesn't really explain what they do. I guess they'll make somebody a laggard. Okay. Then he explains the earthquakes are getting worse. The king also says the earthquakes are getting worse. And when you walk around, sure enough, you have periodic earthquakes. Okay, people, I get it. The earthquakes are important. I'm sure it's a big part of this earth-shattering storyline. I'd say they do string you along nicely in this game. Citadel tells you now to go talk to the prince, and the prince tells me to go get the staff from Mantrex Citadel. I like this. You know, it's open world, but it's huge open world, so they kind of tell you the next step in your adventures. It's nice that way. But I have 2 options now. I have a dungeon up in the one part of the map and the Citadel, but I think I'm in the mood to tackle the dungeon first. I'm headed there. These are the mines of Targus. Made it through. At the bottom was a loot. As in, not a loot item, not a loot box, a loot, L-U-T-E. It's some kind of musical instrument. And I know where that goes. There's a jester in the Mantrek Citadel who wants his music instrument back. So there you go. When you give it back to him, he gives you a password rainbow. To get to level 2 in the Citadel, you have to walk through the secret puzzle room. That's super irritating. If you make one stupid mistake with the joystick, you have to leave the Citadel and come back, fight your way all the way to this point again, and try it again. But if you can make it through, if you're just careful, make it through, you could go to the teleport and speak the word rainbow, and there you go, level 2. It's a good thing I went to the mines first, otherwise I would have been running around the whole Citadel not having anything else new to do. Dude, check this out, I can't believe it. I'm standing next to a piano. It's clearly a piano, and I examine it. You're next to a piece of furniture. No! Piano's way more than furniture. If you're going to take the time to program in a piano, don't call it a friggin' piece of furniture. Then they announced that there's a town called Ridgeport that's the only town selling a boat at this stage, and this boat is specifically only in a little lake that lets you float over to the Hawk Temple. But at least you get to get into the Hawk Temple where you play another arcade game. This one's called Hard Rock Melee. And it's like an early arcade 80s game, you know, mostly just really kind of lame, run around, collect stuff as it falls. And one try through and I'm done with that one. Anyway, also in the level 2, you get a tattoo from this crazy dude in the southeast corner. Naturally, I picked Hawk because I watched Cobra Kai, dude. Hawk, yeah. Also because you need it to make the person in the Hawk Temple happy. So after you've searched all over the fortress, you find a quartz key, which lets you unlock a door to this elf dude who asks 2,500 gold to set up a test. And he asks 3 really odd questions. Would you save a princess or an elven baby? Would you stop a marauding dragon or an incompetent baron? Would you give money to a hungry thief or give a drink to a thirsty drunkard? Honestly, I had to load it a whole bunch of times to figure out what the right answers were, because he just tells you flat out they're wrong. But once you get the right combination, then he explains himself, and the answers don't make much sense either. If you didn't have an emulator, it's 1,000 gold every time you want to retest. Imagine having to leave the Citadel, grind for more gold, buy spells, return to the Citadel, get through the guards again, and then test again for 1,000 gold, and fail again, repeat. Oh, what do we ever do without save states? I don't think anybody beat this game without save states. When you finally get it all right, though, you get a special signet ring. I don't know what it's all about yet, but he also gives you a key to open all the doors, and now you can get to the throne room and approach Mantrek himself. You blast through all his guards, no problem. Step up to the evil Baron and speak to him. Of course, he begs for mercy like a coward and offers you the staff in return. Naturally, you accept because you know you need the staff, but I tested it, it doesn't matter. I tried to attack him, and he speaks to you first. When you answer no, thinking you could battle him, you know, staff be damned, I'm going to battle him anyway. He still whisks you off to the dungeon, so in any case, no matter what you do, you get to this little dungeon. In the chest is the staff. So use the staff, poof, and you're back in the throne room, and back now you got to make your way out to freedom. Alright, head back to Cereval, and now he grants you a new level of warrior for your deeds. The prince is so happy he has the staff back and tells you his father was found at the bottom of the Marthbane tunnels, which just happens to be another one of those exhibits in the newly opened Hawk Temple. So nice how this all lines up for you. You know what to do next? He also gives you 2 emerald gems, just in case you hadn't figured out you need to visit the archives and use gems to get to the next quest. Questing on rails, I call it. Now in the Hawk Temple archives, you look at the Marthbane Tunnels exhibit, get to another set of dungeons. This is another palette swap, but you know, here we go again. This time you have 8 levels to get down to the bottom of, and get down to the bottom of the 8th level, and the king is tucked away neatly in the very, very bottom. Who feeds this poor dude down here? At least we got a glimpse of new monsters in going down this far. We actually have an option not to help him? We can even beat him up? Oh, dude! Oh, he takes a lot of damage. But I surprised me when I saw him die and disappear. Would that totally put you in a zombie state for this game, never being able to finish it? That'd be really weird. I bet if you leave, he probably respawns if you leave and come back. Anyway, I rescued him by giving him his signet ring, so that's where that came in. And he takes the ring and disappears, leaving you to fight the long road back out of the 7th level of Marbane. So hightail it back to the surface, trek all the way back to the castle, go see the prince. He tells you to go see Citadel, who promotes you to squire. Wait, what? What the heck? Squire? I want to go back to warrior. That sounded way more kick butt. Squire, that sucks. Anyway, now back to the throne room, and his lordship, the king, has taken over where the prince was. And he looks a lot younger and way less white hairish than you first spotted him in that deep dungeon. King lets us know that the evil lands of Melbane have been raised again with the power of Blacksilver. Now he tells you to buy a boat and scout the lands of Melbane. Alright, this should be fun. So I go down to try and buy a boat at Beaverton, and there's no more Beaverton. Too much water. It's now gone. Global warming has struck in Thalen. Okay, well, up to Bad Axe. Bad Axe, I said. That's a town. Okay. YouTube censors. Thank you. No coastline has changed here. Well, that's odd. It raises enough to bury one city, but doesn't change things elsewhere. And they don't have boats for sale here? Man. I have to run all the way up to Riverbend, which is the town way the heck up in the north part of the continent. Finally, setting sail. You know what? I found you could sail east or west, and you'll get to Melbane. It's like, I guess that makes sense. It's on the other half of the globe. If you're trying to go too far north or south, it's also blocked with ice, so that makes sense. They're trying to simulate an Earth here. So the 2 most interesting things you'll come across in the new lands of Melbane is 1, a citadel, because a lot of action happens in the citadels. And towns, which these towns, theoretically, right, we've recently raised this land from underwater, and the towns are full of guards and everyday townsfolk selling food, weapons, and stuff. What the heck? You were underwater until a few days ago. How are you fully stocked, and why are you even doing business? Who lives here? Mermen and mermaids? I don't get it. And speaking of story inconsistencies, they are everywhere. The manual talks about a few hundred years, but the game has references to ancient times or the dark ages of time. When you get to the Citadel, the drawbridge is up. You use storming gear to do what? Scale the wall, pull down the drawbridge? I don't know, but whatever you do, the fact is the drawbridge was up, and now you're walking around inside these citadels, and the guards are just like, hey, you cool? Just don't take nothing. What are all these people doing trapped in little jail cells? They are there to boost your attributes or something only, but really? Midgets, giant, the dude who gives you a rice spots disease? Thanks for that. And raising the lands of Melbane, theoretically, shouldn't that lower water levels, right? Because when you toss things into the water rises. But, of course, they raise the land and the rising water completely consumes towns, whatever. If Ceravol the wizard can raise your levels by his own power, why doesn't he just do it all at once and send me out to get Taragas, the bad guy, and be done with it? Of course, that's the problem with the Caretaker and Legacy of the Ancients too. Why don't they just promote you fully and let you go finish off the bad guy? Anyway. And personally, I really don't like how once you've used most of the archive exhibits, you basically take, quote, borrow the display item, and then the exhibit goes closed. It shuts down. I feel like I'm just going through, taking everything out of the exhibits, leaving nothing open and ruining it for anybody else. I wonder if at the end of the game you go return everything. No, you don't. Spoiler alert, you don't. Anyway, big sidetrack there. Okay, now we're on Taragas' Citadel. There are lots of teleportation devices that confuses everything and makes you backtrack and wander around. It wouldn't be so maddening except that walking takes time. I'm constantly turning on the emulator's warp mode, even if it's a little too fast, but I just want to navigate around without taking all night. The guards here are also quite beefy. Even the lightning bolt spell doesn't take them out. You need 2, sometimes even maybe 3, or a bolt and a bunch of fighting, so it gets really tedious. The gold is very good, though. I've collected over 20,000 gold right now raiding the Citadel, and there's even a chest with 5,000 gold right in there. There are lots of people to talk to here, which is weird, because it's some Citadel of, closed off, but they just want to talk to you. They're in cells. One guy gives you rice spots disease. You'll have to get that fixed, and then I'm going to go back and beat the heck out of him. There's also a giant who wants to arm wrestle. So naturally you drink 20 life elixirs. Like, this is all normal. It's all just automatic, and boost your hit point to thousands, and then he takes it all out of you while you're arm wrestling. Oh man, this game makes little sense. It's fun, but nonsensical. Anyway, after all this running around and looting, you come to a dead end when you can't open a particular door. I'm sure there's another quest to do that. This game is obsessed with different keys.
Use keys to open doors.
It seems to be the primary method of limiting progress and steering the narrative. You have to leave now, go get healed up, see if the Citadel or the kings are happy with what I've discovered, because he just said to explore the land, so I'm trying to level up here. Maybe I'm dumb, but I ran to the castle and they just told me about earthquakes and floods. Also, Citadel's just sitting there the whole time while Thalen's continent is disintegrating and will soon sink. Why? Because some other lands are rising from the depths? Why would that sink the Thalen continent? I don't know. No sense again. But still, no level advancement. No talk about my glorious trip to explore the lands of Melbane. Maybe it's my stupid disease. So I run to Eagle Temple. She tells me her brothers could help. I sat there waiting, going, oh, she means your brother's at another temple. Okay, fine. I'll trek halfway across the whole continent again, sail across the little island with the Hawk Temple. Believe me, there's lots of wandering in this game. And there they heal me from rice spots. Whew, Jiminy. Alright, so after getting healed and using the yellow diamonds on the Hawk Temple archives, back to the Citadel for take 2. This time, that guy who gave me rice spots, Rofar the Ravaged, he's soon to be savage for this time. But no, he gives you his prize lodestone. And the lodestone has the power to move boulders. Hint, hint, if you haven't been to a dungeon entrance, you'll know it's the right one because it has rocks blocking the entrance. So there you go, next quest. Pits of Blackmire. Sure enough, the lodestone magically heats up something that's hot enough to melt rock or whatever, but magically you don't even burn your hands. And now you have access to another dungeon. Honestly, this game is really wearing out its welcome. This dungeon is annoying. It has lots of go down to a little small section, go back up, and now a section go down, and then up and down. Oh, you get the idea. It gets annoying. In addition, you'll contract another wonderful disease called rot lung from this nasty place. And you just cured yourself from rice spots. Yuck, man. On the lower levels, you get a rusty key, another key, and of course you get more emeralds for the archives. That's how they keep you moving forward. The rusty key opens that chest you couldn't open at one time, which is another passage down. And finally you get down to where you find a skeleton key. And I don't know about you, but I'm getting really sick of this game, so I'm going to skip through some of the stuff to get to the ending. So, after trekking around a lot, you go back, then we do the usual shake and bake dance with the prince and Citadel, or the king and Citadel now. And finally, we get to move from being a squire and at least get to be a knight. I like knighthood, but I still like the warrior title the best. Anyway, make sure you get healed from your latest disease of the month, rot lung. at the Hawk Temple. Oh wait, you can't get healed until you visit the last special exhibit. Once you visit the last exhibit called Flaxton Incense, now you can get healed. It's just so many hoops you have to jump through. I don't know. It feels like do this, then do that, then do that, then do that. It gets kind of tiring. Finally, you can go and get through the entire Taragas Citadel and find Taragas himself. He offers you the chance to join with him in ruling, and of course I accepted. But he laughs and he just decides to destroy the entire land of Thalen and tells you, never mind, I'm a ruler of one. Seriously, Thalen becomes like Alderaan. It's completely blown away. That's the problem with dealing with megalomaniacal barons. You just can't trust. They'll stick to their word. Okay, the other answer is he zaps you within an inch of your life and you have to exit the Citadel again. Yep. So I'm going to shorten this story up. Basically, you have to go find the blacksmith in the lost town, or in the town of Lost Crag. I like that even though this town of Lost Crag has been underwater until just recently, he's still alive, still practicing his craft. And you give him his old hammer back because that's the only tool he can build you a magic sword with. But he also needs Blacksilver. Just some Blacksilver. Should be able to go find some of that, right? Ha! People spend years and years digging for that stuff if you read the manual. Where am I going to find any? Oh yeah, of course. It's at the bottom of a dungeon. In a chest. What do you know? There it is, a lump of black silver. Okay, so you take that black silver back to the blacksmith at Lost Crag, and he builds you the super most awesomest weapon in the whole world, the black silver sword that he calls the Sword of Hope. And he also should have asked for more money. I have a little bit I could spare for this blacksmith. Anyway, once you have that, you run back to the castle again. I hate having to do this. Every time you have to see if you can raise your level, but at least this time it was fruitful. And the king has made me a baron. Master Beater Baron. What a nice ring. Okay, I'll accept that over the warrior moniker. That's the best title yet. And the king gives me a black opal gem. Oh, what? He had this the whole time? He could have saved me a lot of time, just giving it to me right off the bat. Saravol's kind enough to give me some stats. Thanks, dude. They both tell me to hurry! The world is ending! Oh my gosh! Go, 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 go! Of course, you can wander around to the towns and they all act like nothing's changed from the beginning of the game. So the black opal that it gives you lets you get to the last exhibit, the Dragon Tears exhibit. Wow, I wonder what that's going to do. Duh, because without that, you can't get into the last dungeon. It's all coming to a steaming pile of conclusion here. Sure enough, put the dragon tears into the eyes of the stonework, makes it come alive. What a shocker. And it flies away and leaves the dungeon's entrance open again. Never would have thought of that. Alright, here we go through the last slogfest. I feel like there are just way too many dungeons in this game. 3 by 8 level dungeons in Legacy of the Ancients was plenty. And my favorite one was when you start at the bottom and work your way out. Here it's always delve all the way down and come all the way back out. Except the Dragonspire dungeon. Thank goodness, because this sucker's 12 levels deep. Not much to see or do. It's not like gold is going to be put to any use at this point. So, I mean, look at that. I nearly have 50,000 gold and I'm never going to spend any of it because I'm almost done with this game. So you finally hit the bottom of the dungeon and there's a chest. What does it contain? Nothing! Absolutely nothing! But it does reveal another hole in the ground, which takes you to Taragas' Sparkle Maze. Now this was actually a fun and pleasant surprise. They thrust you right into an arcade sequence for the end game. It's a mix of a maze game and dodge the bad sparkly things. Sparkle here. Guess we have a fruitcake for a baron. He's full of sparkles. Anyway, I just tried various passageways until... Lo and behold, Taragas' cell. Run on in there. The menu options magically slide back into view. That was a cool effect. and Taragas starts blubbering like a little schoolboy about to get whipped by the headmaster. Please, this is the all-powerful magic user? No epic last boss battle? Just a question. Do you spare his life or kill him now? What's your decision? Well, this has been a really fun trip, and I'm glad you've journeyed with me. I'll show you the entire ending sequence next, but to reiterate, although this was a sequel to Legacy of the Ancients, which was one of my favorite Commodore 64 games, it's really not that great of a sequel. There's way too much backtracking and dungeon delving. I had to revisit the Citadel 3 times. It was just plain overkill. It's a bigger world, and you have to swap between 4 discs total, well, 3 actively that you're playing while you're playing the game. And the storyline felt way more contrived, the dialogue wasn't as strong, too many weird inconsistencies inside the game world. But it did have some nice features, and I'm glad I played through it, but once was enough. So my scoreboard on this, the game ranking, I give it 6 out of 10 for a Commodore 64 game. I mean, not a classic by any means, but certainly definitely above average, even though there's a lot of frustration with it. Difficulty, I gave it a 7 out of 10 because it is more challenging, takes a lot of time. And that brings my total games I've played to 1,071, and the games I'm currently completed at the time of this recording, 417. Okay, back to Taragas. Would you spare his life? Unfortunately, it's a fake question. No matter what you answer, the game will end the same way. So, let's get to the ending. And I'll see you next time. Retro Master Beater, later.